Welcome back to my introductory series to Blender. You've made it over to episode 2 now, where we will study the modeling process and how to create this scene in Blender. I've split the modeling process into 2 videos as there is a lot of stuff to cover, but this one will give you the foundation of modeling and how to create a few basic objects. And then in episode 2, we'll ramp it up and get into the flow of things. So let's just get straight into it.
Smooth sculpts.
Alright, so now it's time to get into the modeling side of things. So to begin with, let's actually just delete everything here on our screen. So you can either drag your cursor across them all and select them all, or you can just press A and that'll select everything in the scene. And then to delete them, you can press X and it'll say, you sure you want to delete that? And you're going to press yes. Alright. So now we just have a blank scene, and now we want to start populating it with all these objects so that we can start modeling it and create that cool little isometric scene. So to begin with, you can come up here to add, and you can manually select what you want to add here through this drop down box. But a very quick way to get that box as well on your screen here is by pressing Shift A. That's going to allow us to add something that we want much quicker than going all the way up here. So Shift A, going to go to Mesh and Plane. So now we have this little ground plane that we can again scale up to whatever we want by pressing S. For now, I think I'm just going to scale this up by 8. So if you press S and then press 8 on your numpad, that'll scale it up 8 times. Great. So now we can start feeling out this scene. So from what I can remember, we've got a chest, some barrels, a table, a chair, and some bricks and stuff on the wall. So I'm going to start off with just a simple cube. So I'll grab this cube, I'll bring it up just above the ground plane, so G and then Z to snap it to the Z axis. So now we've got this cool little cube that we can start doing stuff with. I think I want to begin by making the floorboards actually. So to begin with, we'll press Tab and that'll take us into the edit mode. So this is where we can start moving the vertices around and actually start creating the objects that we're going to put in the scene. So to begin with, there's a couple things that we need to know. We've got vertices, we've also got edges, and then we also have faces. So that's pretty important to kind of grasp. We'll start by going through the modes here. So you can change from vertices, edges, and faces up here in the top left. Or on your keyboard, you can just press 1, 2, and 3, and it'll cycle through those modes for you. Okay, so let's make these planks. Essentially what we want to do is select everything. Doesn't really matter what mode you're in, and we're just going to start scaling. So I'm going to squish it down on the Z axis, and then I'll elongate it by pressing scale and then X, and that's going to just push it out. Awesome, so we've got our plank here. What I'm going to do is go back into object mode by pressing Tab and bring it down to the floor, and then head back into object mode and continue editing it. So to get those cool little low poly kind of beveled frosted edges, what we're going to do is go to the vertex mode, click on this little vertex and then press Ctrl B, and that's going to put us into bevel mode. But as you can see, nothing's really happening. And that's because we're not beveling the vertex yet. So we have to press V and then it'll snap to the vertex. Alright, so I'm just going to go around the corners here and start beveling a couple of them just to get that cool little look to it. And then you can also grab one of the edges here and maybe move it down a bit, give it some cool different kind of vibes. But what I really want to do is make a kind of cut in the middle and give it a little crack. So what I'm going to do is head over to the edge select mode. So now I'm on, just press 2 or came up here and clicked on the edges, and now we can actually cut through a little crack in the middle. So what I'm going to do is press 7 to go to the top view, and then I'm going to press K to bring up the knife tool. So this tool kind of lets you cut through the surface and create edges for yourself. But what I want to do is come over here to the side, press K, cut through like this, and before I complete the cut like that, I want to press Z. and that'll kind of x-ray vision through the whole object and cut through. So what we'll do is we'll come through here, press Z to cut all the way through, and once it's connected on the other side, we'll click, and that'll complete the cut through. So all we have to do now is press enter to confirm that, and we can see now we have this cool little cut all the way through. So now that gives us the chance to start beveling and doing some cool things. So what I'll do is I'll just select this top one here and press Ctrl B, and now we can see we've got this cool little bevel. So I'll bevel it out a bit. I might even just press scroll up on my mouse wheel, and that'll give me a couple more sections that I can play with. So I'll just do one for now. I'll click to confirm that, and then I can actually click this middle piece, press G to grab it, pull it down, and now I've got a kind of cool little crack. So I think for now that's all right. What I might do is go to the underside and make some other edits on that side too. But it's a little bit hard because there's a plane in the way. So what I'm going to do is click on the plane, press H to hide it, and then click on the object again and go back into edit mode. So now here, I guess I just want to make some other adjustments to it. So I might even just create another bevel on this side, pull it out a bit, and then again, just pull down this crack here. Okay, so we've got a floorboard. It's looking decent. It'll do what we need to. So what I'll do now is I'll press Alt H to unhide that floor, and let's actually begin setting up the floor plane and all these planks. So we'll move this guy across to the end here, and we just want to line it up with the scene. So what we can do is I'll scale it out a bit more so that it's lined up perfectly, like so. Again, you can press Shift while you're scaling to get a bit more precision. And now we essentially just want to make a bunch of copies of this plank across the floor until it reaches the other side. So what I'm going to do is over here, there's a little wrench icon that you click, and it's going to allow us to add in some modifiers that give us particular kind of things we want. So if you click Add Modifier, come down to Array, press that, and you'll see it's created a duplicate object of it, but not on the axis that we want. So what I'm going to do is switch it to the Y axis because it's currently arraying it on the X. We want it to be arraying on the Y. So I'll move this to 0, move the Y to 1, and now you can see we've got 2 planks that we can play with, but we want to essentially click this up until it fulfills the whole object, and that seems to have done it. So I'll just scale it in a little bit more so it's in line with the ground plane. That looks pretty good. Great. So now it's very uniform and there's not a lot of difference in between each plank. You can see it's just arraying across, and we kind of want to give it some variety. So what we can do is accept this array modifier. So if you click this little drop down here and press apply, you'll see that we now have this whole plane in its entirety, but we want to split all of these planks so that they're an individual plank. So to do that, we'll press Tab, we'll press A to select everything. So once everything's selected, we'll press P, and then we'll go by loose parts. So this is going to separate all of these planks into their own individual object, as you can see over here. So now what we can do is start giving it some variety. So right now, if we were to rotate this, you'll see it's on a weird axis, and that's because the origin point, this little yellow point, that's the origin of the plank, and we want to essentially move that back to this object. And it's actually done that for each one of them. So what we can do is right click this object, set origin to geometry, like that. And now when we rotate it, it's rotating on its own axis, which is awesome. So what I can do, you can press R and we can snap it to a particular axis. And so maybe we just want to flip it over like this. But to kind of eyeball it, it's a bit weird. So what we can do is type in 180 degrees on the numpad, then enter, and then you'll see that that's just done exactly that. It's rotated it 180 degrees. So I'm just going to move it into position now, and I'm just going to repeat that process for each one of these planks. So I'll see you after I've done that. Alright, so now we've got some planks here on the floor that have been rotated and skewed so that they're all kind of individual and they all have their own unique kind of style to them, so it's not all uniform. So once you've done that, we can move on to maybe making the wall. So to make the wall, I'm actually just going to use the ground plane, and we'll throw a modifier on it to give it some thickness afterwards. So first off, it's a little bit hard to see it with the planks in the way, so I'm just going to come over here to the outliner, shift click all of these so that they're all selected, and I'll press H to hide them. So now we've just got this in the viewport. So let's go into edit mode, and with edge selected, we're going to go over here to two edges, and now we're going to extrude them upwards. So to do so, we'll press E, and that lets us extrude the plane, but we want to lock it to the Z axis. So extrude up to whatever you want it to be. Let's just say that that looks good. And I mean, that's pretty much the extent of it. So we've got a wall now. So if we press tab to get out of edit mode and back to object mode, we can add on a modifier in the little wrench menu. So click add modifier, come down here to solidify. So now we can actually give it some thickness with this little scrolly wheel. So let's just pull it across. Let's just say that looks pretty good. And now I think if we press Alt H, we've got beginnings of a cool little scene. So let's just ramp things up now and start modeling all the objects and get into the flow of it. So Shift A, let's start making the maybe the bricks of the wall. So I'll go Mesh, Cube, and I'm just going to start editing this to look like a brick, essentially. So let's go tab into edit mode, and I'm gonna, with everything selected, I'm gonna scale it in a bit, maybe this way, so on the y-axis, and I'm just gonna make it look like a general brick. So I might pull in some of these edges here and press Ctrl B, V, and that's going to allow me to bevel it. And you can see I've given it some extra detail by accident by scrolling, so I'll scroll all the way back out so it's just like that. And yeah, it's now just pretty much a process of making it stylized to your heart's content. So I'll be doing that now. I'm going to do it on both sides as well, because again, we're going to give it some variety by flipping it and playing around with it. So I may even again give it a cut through the middle and give it some extra detail. So I've just tabbed into edit mode, pressed K for the knife. I'm going to click here, press Z so it cuts all the way through, confirm it by clicking, and then confirm it again by pressing enter. So now I've got another cool little cut that I can play with. So in edge mode, again, I'm just going to pull it in a bit. And I mean, that already looks kind of cool. So I think that's a pretty okay start for my cube and my brick. It's looking okay here, but I think even I might just want to give it a little bit more stylization. So to do that, I'm going to come over here to the modifier stack, click add modifier, and give it a decimate modifier. So what this is going to do is essentially that it's going to decimate the geometry and make it look even more low poly. So I think maybe that looks okay. It's really, you just got to play with it till you have something that you enjoy. So I think I'm just going to stick with that for now. And now it's just as simple as lining it up with the wall and begin fleshing out the bricks on the wall. So I think instead of arraying the bricks across the wall, for this one what we'll do is we'll just duplicate the objects and have multiple duplicates that way instead. So to do so, you can click on your object, press Shift D and pull it out. And now you can place it wherever you want, but to make it easier, if you just right click, it'll snap it back to its original location. So now we can precisely move it to wherever you want. So I'm just going to move it across next to it. And again, I'm going to rotate it to something that looks cool. So I've just snapped it to the y-axis. I'll press 180, and I'm just going to do this process again and fill up the entire wall. So I'll see you after that. Okay, so we're up to this part now where we kind of have it over extending from the wall, and we pretty much just need to cut it off and then move it across here so it fills up this side of the wall. It's super easy, so you just click on your object, go into edit mode, bring out the knife tool, and then we're just going to cut it directly through. So again, pull it through, press Z to go directly through the object, click it to confirm, and then enter to confirm again. And now it's just a process of deleting these unwanted pieces. So I'm going to select it like this. What you can do, because it's not selecting the back, if you press Alt-Z, it'll go into sort of X-ray vision, and you can select everything like that. So I've selected it all. I'm just going to press X to delete it, and then I'll press on faces, and I'll delete the faces. So now we actually have a little bit of an issue because there's an open hole here. What we can do to fix that up though is if we go into edge mode, select any one of these edges and press F, that's going to fill it in. So it hasn't filled it in fully, so I'll click on this edge here as well, press F, and there we have it, it's completely filled in, and then we can just continue the process of duplicating things across and filling out the wall. So I'll see you once that's all done. Okay, so now we've got our brick wall set up and it's looking pretty good. I did make some few adjustments while I was setting it all up. I just edited a couple of them to give them a bit more of an aesthetic feel to them. But now we want to essentially copy this across to here. And it's going to be kind of painstaking to duplicate it and then like move it across. It's not ideal. So what we can do is select all of these cubes. You can either shift click them one by one, or you can just find them in your outliner like I was doing and select them all like that. And then we pretty much just want to shift D to duplicate it, right click to snap it back to where it was, and then all we have to do is rotate it to be like perpendicular with this wall. So I'm just doing it on the Z axis. I'll just go 90 degrees, and now all we got to do is just move it into line with this wall by snapping it to the correct angles, and voila, we have some bricks on the wall. So it's looking pretty cool right now, even when it's not textured, so that's always a good sign. I think now we'll just move on to doing the barrels. Those are pretty easy. So again, let's go mesh. We'll actually add in a cylinder this time because it's kind of barrel shaped, and let's just get straight into editing it. So there's a couple new techniques with this one. Firstly being Control R to add in loop cuts. So this will give us, it's kind of like the knife tool, but it's more precise and gives us a lot more precision on what we're doing with them. So you can scroll up and down to get more of them. I'm just going to scroll up to have 2 right now, and then you don't have to place them. You can just right click and then it'll snap it back to where it is. I've got a bit of weird rotation around it, so I just snapped to it with the period key on the numpad. And now let's actually just start making this barrel. So I'm gonna just control click the edges, and this selects the entire ring. So control click, move them up and down, and we just want to give it that kind of barrel feel. So if you can control click the edge loop and you press S, you're going to be able to scale it out and make it look more like a barrel. So I'm just going to do that. I might even just select both of them. So Shift, Alt, and click on an edge to select multiple at any given time. So I've selected both of these. I'm going to scale them both out to about there. And it's now just pretty much a matter of stylizing it to look like a barrel. So I might even just Control R, chuck in 2 more loop cuts, and bring them both up closer to these original loop cuts that I made. And then what we can do is make those little rings, those metal rings around it. So to do so, I'm going to switch over to face selection, Control click to select the entire ring, and I'll do that down here too. Alright, and now we want to extrude them out. So again, E to extrude, but you'll see we've got a bit of an issue. It's not working like we want to. So what you can do is hit Alt E, and what we will do is extrude the faces along their normals. You don't really need to know what that means, but essentially it's going to let us extrude like this, and it's going to make it much more uniform. So that's looking cool, but we want to make it not such a harsh edge. It looks a bit weird. So if we come into edge mode, and just start selecting these edges. I'll select the top and the bottom. Bottom's a bit tricky to click on because of the blanks, but I've done it. And then we're just going to bevel them. So Control B and bevel. And it's given us a little bit of a less harsh angle here. So I'm going to do that again on top and on bottom. Control B. And there we go, we've got some rings for the barrel. But I do want to have one in the middle as well, so I'm going to Control R for a loop cut. I'll make 2 cuts here. I'm going to scale them in a bit on the Z-axis, and go back to face edit, face select, and essentially just do the same process. So scale, extrude, and again, we don't want it to be extruding that way. You go Alt E, extrude faces along normals, and I think that'll do. And then again, back to edge selection, just select both of these rings here, Control B, and we've got a cool little ring for our little barrel here. It's looking a bit sad though, because it's like a flat, there's not much liquid in it. It's very non-buoyant. So let's just like puff it up. So go into edge mode, or just back into edit mode, and we're going to select some of these. So Alt Z to go into X-ray vision, and I'll just select this here and scale. So immediately that's looking more barrel-like, which is awesome, but I kind of just want to make it a little bit bigger. So I'll select everything and scale on the Z-axis, bring it up, and yeah, that's already looking pretty cool, pretty barrel-like. What I'll also do is give the top of it a bit of an indent to give it a little ring around the edge. So to do so, we're going to inset this by pressing I, inset it about there should do, and now we have the option to give a loop cut on this ring. So Control R, click, accept, and I'm just going to bring it down, grab it and press Z. So it's looking a little odd right now because it's got that really harsh edge. So in edge mode, I'm just going to select that, bevel it, and there we go, it's looking better. I think for the purposes of this, I may even just bevel the top here as well. So in face mode, select the top, Control B, and there we go, it's all beveled. So that's looking pretty cool. I'm just going to move it to the corner here. And for now, I think that's all we need to do for the barrel. Okay, I just made some very minor adjustments there, and I like the way it's looking, so I'm actually just going to duplicate this barrel, so Shift D, right click so it snaps back to its original position, and I'm just going to make a smaller barrel and have it propped up next to it. So simple stuff, I'm just scaling it down. I'll give it a bit of a rotation, and this time I don't really care how I'm looking at it, like the perspective of my camera. I just want it to look good. So I think that seems okay. And let's get on to making the chest.
Alright guys, that's the end of part 1. If you click on screen now, you'll get sent over to part 2 where we'll finish out our modeling process and get ready for texturing. I'll see you over there.